G'day everyone, welcome back to Put It Plainly. I'm Sherry.
And I'm Shannon, and this is where we take the world's biggest topics and put them into plain English, no jargon and no spin.
And today we're looking at one of the most remarkable stories of all time, the story of the Jewish people.
From Abraham to the modern state of Israel in 1948.
4,000 years of struggle, survival and revival.
Fasten your seatbelts for this fascinating trip back through time.
Let's put it plainly.
This journey begins with Abraham roughly 4,000 years ago in a city called Ur, which is now southern Iraq.
In fact, the word Ur, as in the ancient kingdom of Uruk, is supposedly where the name of the modern country called Iraq actually comes from. Uruk, Iraq. You see the similarity, Shan?
Yes, that is pretty cool, Shez. So according to the Hebrew Bible, Abraham was called by God to leave his homeland and travel west to a land called Canaan in what is today the modern state of Israel and the Palestinian territories.
As per tradition, God promises Abraham that his descendants would become a great nation and that this land would be theirs to keep.
Abraham's son Isaac and grandson Jacob carried this promise forward.
Jacob was later renamed Israel and had 12 sons, the ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel.
The Israelites eventually left Canaan because of famine and settled in Egypt, but over time they became enslaved.
The story of their liberation, known as the Exodus, is one of the most remarkable of all time.
Moses, a Hebrew kid raised in the Egyptian pharaoh's palace, grows up to lead his people out of slavery across the Red Sea and into the wilderness.
Along the way, he encounters God at Mount Sinai, who gives him the Ten Commandments, the moral foundation of not just Judaism, but also the other two Abrahamic faiths, Christianity and Islam.
Rules about justice, honesty, and basic human dignity that have echoed across many centuries. So after 40 years wandering in the desert, the Israelites finally returned to the land of Canaan.
They established tribes and judges and eventually a monarchy. The first king was Saul. The second was David, the bloke who took down Goliath.
King David made Jerusalem his capital, and his son Solomon built the first temple, which made the city central to Jewish life and tradition.
After Solomon's time, this initial unity broke apart. The kingdom split up into two, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. And this disunity paved the way for a series of foreign invasions by neighboring empires.
The Assyrians conquered the north in 721 BC. The Babylonians took the south in 586 BC and destroyed the first temple. They exiled the Jews to Babylon, also in modern-day Iraq.
In Babylon, Jewish scholars began writing down the stories, laws and traditions that would become the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, as Jewish people call it.
Or the Old Testament, as Christians call it. Aramaic, the language of the conquerors, soon came to replace Hebrew as the native language of the Jews.
Now you know why Passion of the Christ was filmed in Aramaic instead of Hebrew, which was actually only brought back to life in the late 1800s by a bloke called Eliezer ben Yehuda.
Whoa, yes, interesting. But wait, you've gone back to the future by like 15 centuries already, Shez.
Yeah, chill. When the Persians conquered Babylon, King Cyrus allowed the Jews to go back to Jerusalem. They built the second temple, and for a while, things seemed pretty stable.
And then came the Greeks under Alexander the Great. Greek culture, philosophy, science, and art swept through the Middle East. Many Jewish people adopted parts of it, but others greatly resisted it.
Now, this tension sparked the Maccabean Revolt in the 2nd century BC, a Jewish rebellion against Greek rulers. That victory restored Jewish independence for a short while and is still celebrated today during Hanukkah.
Independence didn't last long though. Next, Rome expanded east and eventually took control.
Yes, the Romans cracked down hard on political uprisings.
This is the time frame in which Jesus Christ emerges. Jews had long been waiting for a Messiah. A small number of them began following Jesus. They became known as the Nazarene movement.
Now, what started out as a movement within Second Temple Judaism eventually became a separate belief system through the centuries. When one Jewish revolt went too far, the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in 70 AD, a moment that changed Jewish life forever.
You see, with the temple gone, Jews could no longer offer sacrifices. Worship had shifted to prayer and study and community at the beginnings of synagogue life. Welcome to Rabbinic Judaism.
But the Romans didn't stop there. In 135 AD, they forced Jews out of their homes scattering them across the Mediterranean, the start of the diaspora, or galut in Hebrew, a dispersion that would last nearly 2,000 years.
In the centuries that followed, Jewish communities popped up everywhere. The Sephardim across Spain, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt and Turkey, the Ashkenazim across Germany, Poland, Ukraine, Russia and even America, and then the Mizrahim across Egypt, Iraq, Yemen and Iran, among other places.
Jews in the diaspora spoke different languages and adapted to different societies, but stayed united by common tradition.
Many became traders, scholars and doctors. Jewish thinkers helped preserve and translate ancient Greek texts that would later fuel the European Renaissance.
But life wasn't easy. Jews were often blamed for plagues, wars, and economic hardship. In England, France, and Spain, entire communities were expelled. In Eastern Europe too, many were confined to ghettos or subjected to violent mobs called pogroms.
Yet through all of that, Jewish culture kept producing some of the world's most enduring ideas, from philosophy to law to ethics.
Quite right.
Fast forward to the 1700s and 1800s, this period became known as the Enlightenment. Europe started talking about liberty, equality, and human rights. Jews slowly gained citizenship in some of these countries, and they began entering universities and participating in public life.
At the same time, nationalism was on the rise. Every group wanted its own homeland: Italians, Germans, Poles, and eventually Jews too.
That's when modern political Zionism was born, the idea that the Jewish people, like every other nation, deserved a home in their ancestral land, the hills of Zion surrounding Jerusalem.
Theodor Herzl, a Jewish journalist in Austria-Hungary, became the movement's most famous leader. After witnessing anti-Jewish sentiments in Europe, he concluded that Jews would never truly be safe without a country of their own.
From 1882 onwards, waves of Jewish migration began back to what was then Palestine, part of the Ottoman Empire. They bought land, built farms, schools and communities, even revived Hebrew as a spoken language.
Tensions grew between Jewish migrants and local Levantine Arab communities, who actually made up 92% of the local population. Both Jewish and Levantine Arab people saw the land as their own.
Then came World War I, and that changed everything. The Ottoman Empire collapsed and Britain took control of Palestine with the help of Australia and New Zealand, defeating the Ottomans at the Battle of Beersheba in 1917.
Only a couple of days later, the British issued the Balfour Declaration supporting a national home for the Jewish people, but also promising to protect the rights of existing non-Jewish communities.
After the war, Jewish immigration increased under the British rule. New towns like Tel Aviv sprung up, agriculture flourished, Hebrew newspapers, universities and theatres reappeared just about everywhere.
But Levantine Arab opposition also grew. Clashes erupted. The British tried to keep peace, but often ended up pleasing no one.
Then came World War II and the Holocaust.
The Nazi regime in Germany, driven by radical ideologies, sought to eliminate the Jews of Europe. 6 million were murdered in ghettos, concentration camps, and mass shootings. 1/3 of all Jews on Earth were wiped out.
When the war ended, the world was horrified, and rightfully so. Survivors in displaced person camps had nowhere else to go. Many turned again to the dream of a homeland in the British Mandate of Palestine, as it was then known.
Britain, exhausted and unable to get a grip on the crisis, handballed the issue to the newly formed United Nations.
In 1947, the UN proposed its Partition Plan 181, separate Jewish and Levantine Arab states with Jerusalem under international control.
The Jewish leadership was in favour. The Levantine Arab leadership felt the partition was unjust because it gave away 56% of the land to Jews, who made up 30% of the population, and 44% of the land to the local Levantine Arabs, who made up 70% of the population.
When the British pulled out in May of 1948, Jewish leaders declared independence. The modern state of Israel was reborn for the first time since the fall of the ancient kingdom.
The very next day, armies from Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon invaded. Israel was outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded.
But somehow they managed to survive. The first Arab-Israeli war ended with Israel controlling more territory than the UN had originally allocated. Hundreds of thousands of Jews from Europe and in coming decades from North Africa and the wider Middle East came in, building a new society from the ashes of exile.
Some 700,000 local Levantine Arabs were left displaced. Now then, 4,000 years after Abraham first set out from Ur, the Jewish people had their own homeland again, not just in faith, but in fact.
Their journey is one of the most extraordinary of all time. A people scattered across continents, surviving empire after empire, and never losing sight of who they are.
Through every exile, every persecution, and every rebirth, they carried an unbroken chain of identity. Few nations, let alone ancient ones, can say the same.
And whether you look at it as a story of faith, nationhood, or sheer endurance, it's a reminder of what belief and belonging can actually achieve.
It's also a story that still shapes the modern world, because every debate about Israel today, whether political or social, is built on some interpretation of this complex journey.
And now, we've been on this journey together in this episode, from Abraham to 1948, from promise through to statehood.
The closest thing to time travel, right, Shan?
I reckon. So if you like this drive back through the ages, chuck us a thumbs up, share it around, and hit the subscribe button for many more interesting episodes.
We'll keep bringing you the world's biggest stories made simple.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Put It Plainly.